Alright guys, today we are talking about Ghost of Tsushima, a game that I am very much looking forward to, as I'm sure many of you are as well, and we will be able to play it in just a few days, which is awesome and very exciting. But today, we finally have the review scores out for this game. The review embargo has lifted, so what I wanted to do is just take some time to go over my thoughts on what the critics are saying, just let you guys know what the critics are saying, and we all know that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. At least it shouldn't. At the end of the day, I always encourage anyone to come to their own conclusion and decide for yourself. If there's a game that you are excited to play and you think it looks good, then by all means, go out there and support it. You are taking a chance no matter what, but still, usually, you know what's best for you, not someone else. However, I don't think that means there's no point at all to listening to what people may have to say, those who've already played the game, those who've already completed the game. And I think we all kind of have our own outlets or individuals that we go to whose opinions we maybe respect, or usually they kind of fall in line with, you know, each individual's personality or whatever. So for me personally, I watched SkillUp's review. He's probably my go-to guy, my favorite reviewer, because most of the time he just seems to be on the mark. I noticed that anytime he's not really enjoying a game, whatever issues he may have with the game, I find that I'm having those same issues. Anytime he's really enjoying a game and has some really positive things to say about it, I oftentimes find that I'm usually in agreement with that. That's not to say it's 100% of the time, but out of all the reviewers I listen to, out of all the individuals I go to, especially when it comes to the outlets that score games, I find that SkillUp is usually my go-to. And I guess I'm just plugging that for him in the beginning here, because I feel as though it's kind of unfair to look at this review score. We see an 84 on Metacritic, which is very solid. That's out of 86 critic reviews. I feel as though it's kind of unfair to look at that and then just not consider what these other individuals are saying. I think ACG, he's very well respected when it comes to reviewing games. He also had a lot of praise for this game, and I think he did give it a buy, which is awesome to hear. So there's others as well that I'm not mentioning, but I guess I'm just saying this in the beginning because it sounds like these are individuals where if they had to score a game, they'd probably give it like a 9 out of 10 or maybe even a 10 out of 10. And, you know, we're not going to see that reflected here on the Metacritic score. But as I said, looking at the Metacritic score, an 84 is very solid. Me personally, I was expecting it to maybe be a little bit higher, but that's just because everything I've seen and heard about Ghost of Tsushima so far has been awesome, and it just seems like a gamer's game. It seems like it's doing a lot of things really well, and still, an 84 is very good, and we will find out if that ends up going down slightly or up slightly, because I'm pretty sure there will be more reviews that actually get added to this. That's usually how it works. So yeah, if we go in a little bit deeper here though, and we look at the critic reviews, you can see that there are 77 positive reviews and 9 mixed and 0 negative, which actually makes me feel pretty good. Hopefully that will stay at 0, because I don't see anything here with this game that could be perceived as a big negative, you know? We saw what happened with Days Gone, we saw what happened with Death Stranding, and we saw what happened with The Last of Us Part 2. Looking at Days Gone, we all know that situation, the critics just simply got it wrong. We're seeing 5 out of 10 review scores, 6 out of 10 review scores, and the reasonings are just absurd, right? And people who are actually going out there and buying this game and playing it, they're like, this game is playing like an 8 out of 10. Like, there's a lot of really great stuff it's doing. I don't think anybody is really sitting there saying that, oh my God, you know, Days Gone is an absolute masterpiece, 10 out of 10, like best game ever made. I don't think it's at that level. I think most people are in agreement of that. But at the same time, I don't think anybody was sitting back saying, oh, Days Gone is a 5 out of 10 game. That just seemed a little bit ridiculous to me. On top of that, you look at Death Stranding, and that was a little bit more understandable, where when you look at the gameplay of Death Stranding, you can understand why it would be as divisive as it is, right? You can understand that there's a lot of people who would try to play that game and be like, this just isn't really gelling with me. I'm not really into this type of gameplay. I'm not really feeling it. Totally understandable. Does that mean it's a 4 out of 10 game, a 3 out of 10 game? I don't think so. And I'm mentioning that because that is one game where I did see some review reviewers, so-called professional reviewers, giving it a 3 out of 10, where I'm just like, you gotta be kidding. And then we see The Last of Us Part 2, and you can tell that this is a game that the critics really loved. You know, they were giving it heaps of praise. They were giving it 10 out of 10s across the board, and it got like a 94 on Metacritic, which is great. But you know that the story itself was extremely divisive across the gaming landscape, and so, yeah. When it comes to Ghost of Tsushima, it just seems like it's a really good game. It seems like there's a lot here to love, and the things that people are not loving so much, well, we're going to get into that. So, looking at some of these reviews here, we have Gaming Age. We got this covered. ZTGD, Screen Rant, Daily Star, Dark Station, all giving this game the highest possible score, a 10 out of 10. So let's see what we got this covered had to say. Ghost of Tsushima is a riveting tale complemented by infinitely fascinating combat, inventive navigation mechanics, and arresting visuals, effortlessly earning itself a spot as one of the absolute best games released on the PlayStation 4. So there you go. That kind of sounds in line with, you know, just to kind of sum it up here with what SkillUp was saying, where he said that this game was absolutely awesome. And yeah, so let's see what Screen Rant has to say. It's the way Ghost of Tsushima combines elements players are both familiar and unfamiliar with that make it such an enjoyable experience, and one which allows players, or which players will want to continue playing long after the credits roll. So that sounds pretty awesome to me. Daily Star says, I think that your enjoyment of Ghost of Tsushima will come down to how you like the game's structure. If you played Horizon Zero Dawn and Days Gone, you'll know exactly what to expect. See, I like the sound of that, because I love Days Gone and I loved Horizon Zero Dawn. While I understand the comparisons calling the game Assassin's Creed, but in Japan, is doing it a bit of a disservice in my opinion. Yes, you will raid hideouts. Yes, you will have a listen mode where you can see enemies behind walls and stealth kill them. The game also does have similar ideas from its contemporaries, like Sekiro's focus on parrying and Neo's stances, but Ghost of Tsushima does many aspects exceedingly well, and it's more than the sum of its parts. The gameplay is fun, the narrative and its characters are great, and the art direction is absolutely beautiful. The pros here vastly outweigh the cons. Ghost of Tsushima is a breathtaking adventure. So it's very interesting because they are kind of, you know, it seems to me, Daily Star, and the reason why I'm highlighting this one is because I find it fascinating. First of all, they're making a comparison to Horizon Zero Dawn and Days Gone, basically saying if you enjoyed the open world structure of these games, you're going to enjoy the open world structure of Ghost of Tsushima. And they're also saying that basically they think some of these comparisons that people are making as a way to kind of, you know, blow this game off and say it's just not worth playing or it's not going to be that great, saying, oh, it's Assassin's Creed in Japan. First of all, I think most people think that sounds awesome, but it's saying that it does a lot of things that, yeah, are derivative, but that doesn't make it a bad thing. And so when it says here at the end that the pros vastly outweigh the cons, it sounds like they're basically trying to say that the only real con with this game is you could maybe call it derivative, right? But, this is why I 100% agree with this review. I'm the type of person where I don't care if a game is copying what another game did. I simply do not care. If they do it just as good or better, then I'm happy. Okay, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to make a great game, in my opinion. And that certainly should not be a reason to take points off of a game. But let's move down here. We have Game Informer giving it a 9.5 out of 10, which is definitely good. It says Ghost of Tsushima captures the mystique, fierce violence, and barely contained emotional angst of the great samurai films. The line of inspiration is clearly purposeful. Sucker Punch included a gorgeous Kurosawa mode, which sets a black and white film grain, audio-treated effect that doubles down on the classic cinematic vibe. It's well worth turning on, if only for a few missions, but even beyond that cool feature, this is a game that nails the aesthetic it's shooting for, firmly establishing itself as the medium's defining samurai saga. So, definitely, you know, a good summary there. I would have preferred to hear more about, like, the gameplay a little bit, but still, Game Informer seems to have loved it. Destructoid says, with Ghost of Tsushima under its belt, Sucker Punch deserves to be in the same conversation as Insomniac, Naughty Dog, and Sony Santa Monica. See, that's what I've been saying. I've been saying that, in my opinion, looking at Ghost of Tsushima, this is going to be that game that elevates Sucker Punch as a studio to the next level, where they will be looked at on the same level as the studios just listed here. Let's see. Let's go down to some of the lower reviews here. A lot of 9 out of 10s here. Game Rant gives it a 9 out of 10. Digital Trends. Let's see. PlayStation Lifestyle. IGN surprisingly gave it a 9 out of 10. Let's see what IGN has to say. Ghost of Tsushima is an enormous and densely packed samurai adventure that often left me completely awestruck with both its visual spectacle and excellent combat. By steadily introducing new abilities instead of stat upgrades, its swordplay manages to stay challenging, rewarding, and fun throughout the entire 40 to 50 hours that it took me to beat the campaign. A few aspects are surprisingly lacking in polish in comparison to other first-party Sony games, especially when it comes to enemy AI and the stealth part of its stealth/action split. Still, this is an extraordinary open-world action-adventure game that solves several issues that have long gone unaddressed in the genre, while also just being an all-around samurai slashing good time. So I find this review interesting as well, because they are pointing out a very clear con here, negative, saying that to them the enemy AI and the stealth aspect of the game lacked the type of polish that they would expect. But other than that, everything else came together in a way that they felt confident giving it a 9 out of 10. So WCCF Tech giving it a 9 out of 10. IGN Japan, 9 out of 10. PlayStation Universe, Push Square, a lot of 9 out of 10s here. Games Radar Plus. So yeah, let's just keep moving right along here. We have IGN Spain giving it an 87. Easy Allies giving it an 85. Let's see, GamesBeat an 85. I'm trying to go down to some of the lower ones to see what they had to say. So we have some 8 out of 10s here. Trusted Reviews. Trusted Reviews says Ghost of Tsushima is an excellent open world adventure from Sucker Punch Productions, which adds some innovative ideas to a fairly stagnant genre. The game's depiction of the time period is generic and inoffensive, but that doesn't prevent it from being a stunning visual showcase and a worthwhile swan song for the PS4. So that's what they had to say, giving it an 8 out of 10. Let's just keep moving right along. So now we're getting into the 70s. Let's see here. IGN Italia gave it a 75. GameSpot gave it a 7 out of 10. Now, I put out this tweet with GameSpot. I don't know if they still have it on their final review. I don't even care if they do. But one of the reasonings, I kid you not, like GameSpot lists the pros and the cons, like the things they liked, the things they didn't. One of the things they actually put down as a negative, as a con. This is a professional review outlet, supposedly, right? One of the things they put down as a negative, and their reasoning why they gave this game a 7 out of 10, was because you could not cut down bamboo trees. Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. See, this right here, I know it may not seem that serious, but that's why people look at this type of stuff, like these professional reviews from these critics, as a joke. Because when you write stuff like that in your professional review, it comes off as a joke. So GameSpot says the game hits a lot of fantastic cinematic highs, and those ultimately lift it above the trappings of its familiar open world quest design and all the innate weakness that comes with it. But those imperfections and dull edges are definitely still there. Ghost of Tsushima is at its best when you're riding your horse and taking in the beautiful world on your own terms, armed with a sword and a screenshot button, allowing the environmental cues and your own curiosity to guide you. It's not quite the Criterion Classic, but a lot of the time it sure looks like one. So, okay, I mean, I guess they didn't really explain, in this little synopsis here exactly why. I mean, I guess they want me to read the review, but I looked at it and it's just like, one thing I've noticed, I did, look into some of these lower scored reviews, and it seems like the common theme is they're saying that it's basically there's too much filler, right? And it's too much of what we've come to expect from open world game design and a lot of Sony's open world games from their first party. And I don't necessarily agree with that, simply because I am just a believer, and if it's not broken, don't try to fix it, right? And so just because Sucker Punch wants to, again, take things that have worked for other studios and other games, even if it was from 3 years ago and implemented into their game in 2020. To me, I'm not going to look at that as a negative or a bad thing. That's all. So we have the Telegraph giving it a 6 out of 10, and all they said is Sucker Punch's PS4 tribute to Akira Kurosawa is gorgeous to behold, but its sparse open world and bloated mechanics has it falling short. Okay, bloated mechanics, I guess. That's not what I've heard. I've heard that their mechanics are actually trying to do things a little bit differently, but whatever. We have The Guardian saying, unlike Assassin's Creed, which always uses its historical settings as stages for its own eccentric stories, Ghost of Tsushima sticks so closely to the tropes and storylines of classic samurai fiction that it sometimes forgets to have a personality of its own. After I caught myself repeatedly checking my phone out of boredom during the story missions, I decided to abandon them entirely for a while and had a great time chasing foxes, bathing in hot springs, composing deeply average haiku, and climbing mountains in search of a legendary bow instead. This is the most beautiful version of Japan ever conjured in code, and when running errands and slashing Mongol spearmen to bits gets tedious, you can always just drink in the view. So, okay, I mean, I'm gonna assume that whoever played this at The Guardian, they are coming off as though they didn't like the story. I mean, they're literally saying that the story for them was so boring, they were picking up their phone, and I don't know. To me, this just doesn't seem like a game that's going to have a story that's that boring. Okay. So we're looking at VG 24/7, and it seems like the lowest rating that was given here so far is a 6 out of 10, which, okay, you know, and that's fine. I'm just glad I'm not seeing like a 2 or 3 out of 10, because at that point I feel like there's literally probably nothing there that's justifiable. A 6 out of 10 seems like these reasonings are pretty justifiable. I mean, if somebody doesn't like a story of the game, then that's maybe why they're going to give it a lower score. VG 24/7 says it has its moments, but like Jin Sakai in the opening hours, the past holds it back. It's open world, the video game. Oh god, it's far too easy too. The lack of consequence for failure makes it feel like you're just going through the motions. If you'll excuse the wind-based pun, it's a breeze. While playing it, I often found my mind wandering. By the third and final act, I just wanted it to be over. Like the samurai, Ghost of Tsushima feels like a relic of a bygone era. Interesting. So, okay, I'm gonna just, I guess, end this by saying that, maybe not saying, maybe we can actually look into it, because I just have this feeling that some of these outlets, let me check here one more time before I check. I have a feeling that some of these outlets that are giving this game like a lower score, specifically VG 24/7, and let's look at VGC as well. They say Sucker Punch's Kurosawa homage has atmosphere and sharp combat, but it's weighed down by the genre's more perfunctory tropes. I don't know what that word is, but I gotta look into what that word is. But something tells me, and what I'm trying to get at here, guys, is that if we were to, let's say, go to The Last of Us 2, right? We go to The Last of Us Part 2 and look at some of these review scores, right? Something tells me that you're gonna probably see some of the reasoning. Let me find it. So there's a lot, obviously there is a lot of high scores here. Let me get rid of this. But I just want to do this because I had a feeling this was going to happen with some review outlets, and I don't know what VG 24/7. Here we go. VG 24/7, 10 out of 10 for The Last of Us Part 2, but 6 out of 10 for Ghost of Tsushima. When the credits rolled on The Last of Us Part 2, I was still buzzing from the excitement of the final few hours. My loyalty shifted between characters. I grew to love who I hated and dislike who I loved. I laughed, I teared up, I felt anger and elation. It's the new high watermark for video game characters, and I can't wait for everyone to see just how special it is. As soon as it ended, I booted up my New Game Plus, and I'm experiencing it again with my eyes open. The context of the finished story imprinting new meaning onto those early scenes and characters. I'm not swiping in the dark anymore. So, I mean, look, they're basically saying that they love the story of The Last of Us 2, a video game, mind you, so much that this is their reasoning for giving it a 10 out of 10. Keep in mind, they didn't even, in this little synopsis, VG 24/7, they didn't mention a single thing about gameplay in this synopsis. It's just about the story. Meanwhile, when we look at Ghost of Tsushima, they're saying that the game just got boring, the story wasn't good enough. And look, I haven't played the game myself, so I don't know what the story of Ghost of Tsushima is going to be like, but I have a gut feeling that it's not going to be so bad that I'm going to be like, this is a 6 out of 10 game. Okay, now for me, The Last of Us Part 2, I had the opposite effect with this that VG 24/7 is having here and many others, where for me, The Last of Us Part 2 story, it took away from the game in a significant way for me. But this is what bothers me, is that I've been hearing that the gameplay of Ghost of Tsushima is really, really good. It does a lot of things really great. And just from a video game standpoint, right? Like, this is a video game that you interact with and you play. It gets a lot of things right. And yet we're seeing outlets giving it a 6 out of 10 because they're like, yeah, you know, story wasn't good enough. And I'm just like that. Listen, they're honestly, considering the amount of content that's packed into Ghost of Tsushima compared to a game like The Last of Us Part 2, considering, I think we can all agree, and somebody please tell me if I'm wrong about this, because I'm telling you that I'm not, okay? I think we can all agree that those who are deciding to play The Last of Us Part 2, more than 50% of their reasoning is because of the story. They want to see the story. They want to know what happens to the characters. I'm just going to be honest with you. Gameplay is not the main driving force behind The Last of Us Part 2. That's not to knock the gameplay, because I'm not doing that. The gameplay is fine. It's great in many ways. But I'm telling you right now, it's the story. If there was no story to The Last of Us Part 2, how many people would still be interested in it? To whereas when you look at Ghost of Tsushima, yes, there is a story there, but to me it seems, and you even see this in the reviews, it's more about the world, it's more about exploring the world, it's more about the gameplay, the combat. And the story is a big part of it, of course, but what I'm trying to say is I think for a game like Ghost of Tsushima, it's actually maybe okay if the story's a little bit weaker. A game like Days Gone, to me, that game had a lot of content, man, and there was a lot of different things to do in that game besides just the main story. And that's why I wasn't as hard on that story, because I was like, the story was serviceable. It was good. It wasn't by any means like mind-blowing, like, oh my God, this is the next level of storytelling in video games. It was fine and it was good, right? But there was so much more to the video game than just the story. And this is where I'm just pointing out, in my opinion, the blatant hypocrisy. So you're telling me, VG 24/7, that if Ghost of Tsushima had a story that was as good in your eyes as The Last of Us Part 2, suddenly it would be a 10 out of 10 game, even though it has way more to offer than just the story? Anyway, I had to get that little rant out, and we also have VGC. Look, they also gave it a 6 out of 10. Naughty Dog has taken everything to the limit to create The Last of Us Part 2, the PS4, its design template, and its staff. In some respects, it's gone too far, but the results are undeniably spectacular, and this is the studio's best game yet. Again, no real mention of, like they're just basically saying all the things that we've heard, right? Like, yeah, we know that Naughty Dog put everything into this game, but why are you not mentioning anything about the gameplay of The Last of Us Part 2? You know, I mean, you're talking about design template, but it's like, it's this, okay. I mean, anyway, I'm not trying to turn this into that. I'm just pointing out that I suspected that there would be some review outlets that would judge Ghost of Tsushima unfairly, but then when you look at their reviews for other games, even in the same category, right? Like a single player narrative driven game, you know, they're being judged differently. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. Probably turned out a little bit longer than I wanted to, but let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. Are you excited for Ghost of Tsushima? What do you think about these review scores? Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.